Hello and welcome to another episode of The Candid Fitness, a podcast where I share my learning through personal stories and also invite guests to talk about their stories or share their expertise on all things fitness, which includes physical health, nutrition, workouts, mental health, self-discipline, and much more. In this episode, I chat with Callum Wilson, who is a pre and post-natal training specialist with more than a decade worth of experience guiding women throughout their pregnancy and beyond. He is the co-owner of Bump Health in Sydney and a highly respected leader within the industry. Calum is also an educator who has successfully trained over 3,000 personal trainers, teaching his Fitness Australia accredited course called A Comprehensive Guide to Exercising Throughout Pregnancy and Beyond. In this candid conversation, we discuss the importance of exercise during pregnancy and the role it plays in postnatal recovery. We discussed in detail about the exercise considerations for each trimester and the post-pregnancy recovery process. It's an information-packed episode thanks to Callum's depth of knowledge, so make sure you listen until the end. I hope this conversation would be as valuable for you as it was for me. If you enjoy this, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. This is our last episode of 2020, so I wish you a happy new year and a wonderful 2021. Now without further delay, come join us and enjoy this candid conversation. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I have Callum Wilson with us today. Callum, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate the time out of your day to have a little chat. And it's good to kind of, spread some knowledge across the world over the global scale.
Thanks a lot for that. So you've been providing pre and post-natal training for almost a decade now, probably more, right? So what sparked your interest in this field? Because now it's sort of popular, but I'm guessing that a decade back it wasn't as popular. So what was the motivation behind doing this?
Good question. And I, to be honest, I get this asked a lot because obviously I'm a male in a very, what people think is a very female orientated sector. So my degree was in sports science. And in that degree, we had a couple of modules that did brush across pregnancy, nothing too much, but it gave me an understanding of kind of what goes on anatomically and emotionally and physically to the mum, but nothing that really spurred my attention. And then after the degree, I did a diploma in personal training and I went to work for a company called LA Fitness back in the UK. And one of the trainers there, he specializes business around pregnancy, so pre and post. And after doing the general thing that most PTs do, you kind of do fat loss and a bit of injury rehab. I kind of just looked at him and saw the fact that he had this thriving business in a very, what most people think is a very niche sector. And from that kind of gave me an understanding of kind of what he did and how he did it. And I kind of engineered it so it became his mentor. No, I was his mentor.
You were.
However you say it. And he kind of taught me everything that I needed to know from that point. So we worked together for about another year and a half. And then I moved to Australia 12 years ago. And I moved into the northern beaches of Sydney. And Sydney was so far behind. Australia in general was so far behind. Like there were so many gaps in the public sector. It was just very frustrating because it was bigger in England, but non-existent in Australia. And I just saw as a business potential, just the chances to build a business. So from that point, I just put all my attention, every study, every course, every bit of literature was all based on that. I marketed myself purely as a pre and postnatal expert, didn't really take on any other clients, didn't take on any fat loss clients, and then just kind of engineered over time just to be the go-to person in that sector. And then I've just built on that over the last 12 years.
Wow, wonderful. And you sort of have made it like a very popular gym in Sydney, and it's pretty well known, right?
Yeah, so I was a PT for 10 years, and I would just like people that can afford PT are the rich. And it was great for 10 years. I trained lots of rich people, lots of rich housewives, and their husbands were bankers and CEOs. And it annoyed me that I couldn't get in front of more people that couldn't afford the help that I was offering. So probably around 3 years ago, me and my business partner started talking about creating a space that just had everything under one roof. And that's how we created the company Bump, where we have like a low cost entry point for gym membership. So we can help a lot of people that will just do classes. And then we also have the personal training option for the people that want the slightly extra level of care. And then as well, we have 2 crash rooms, a physio on standpoint. We've got, when we have regular talks and host different sleep consultants and different specialists in the area. So yeah, over the last 2 years, and it's because it's such a point of difference, we've managed to reach full capacity pre-COVID and post-COVID, which has been good. And now we're looking at just opening our second location next week.
Wow, that's wonderful. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good. It's good to work.
So for the listeners to understand why exercising before pregnancy is so critical, would you want to share what is the purpose of doing exercise during pregnancy? And also, how far ahead, when you're planning for your pregnancy, should you start building your sort of strength so that you're able to have a successful pregnancy?
Yeah.
And sort of your labor is much easier than someone who's not exercising.
The truth is, in terms of programming and training, the training doesn't really change too much until around 16 weeks of pregnancy. So it's not the end of the world if people find us at that point. And truth is, most women won't train in that first trimester just purely because they're feeling very fatigued. There's a huge hormone overload, which makes them feel nauseous. Training gets put right down to the bottom of their priority lists. And then, so most of the mums won't come to 16 weeks anyway, because that's the point where everything's kind of settled down, they're ready. And that's when the training itself will start to change. The body will start to change. And the program will start to change. So all our classes that we run at Bump are all designed around the pregnancy journey. So we know exactly, every journey is the same. Okay. Whilst everyone thinks their pregnancy is unique and special, which it obviously is, but fundamentally, the abdominal muscles will always separate at 16 weeks. The shoulders will become more kyphotic. The pelvis will start to tuck underneath the rest of your body, because it's going to want to counteract the front loading that's occurring. So because we know the journey every pregnancy is going to go through, we then program design through the gym to help alleviate some of the issues. Like 70% of women will have lower back pain. And that's predominantly because they've got weak glutes and no supporting muscles through their core. So the load shifts to the lower back. Now, by doing strength training in the right way, we do lots of deadlifts, hip thrusters, lunges. We can build the glutes. We can build a muscle called the transverse abdominis, which can then support the body and help alleviate these issues. So training one of the main reasons women will train is to alleviate any pain that might occur. The second one would be to stop separation from getting as bad as it might. So separation, without going into too much detail, will occur in pretty much every single pregnancy I've ever seen. And we want to minimize that as much as we can to allow recovery to happen a lot faster. So that's why the generic information that most people have heard is you don't plank during pregnancy, you shouldn't sit up during pregnancy, you shouldn't twist. And the main reason being is you're effectively herniating that muscle and you're forcing the separation further apart. So we look at just counteracting that. So we eliminate all those exercises, but then on the flip side, then we use lots of rehab-based movements to strengthen the transverse abdominis and all those rotational muscles to support a midsection to stop the separation from getting over 3 fingers. And then it means recovery is so much faster postnatally, and then they can get back to where they used to be a lot faster. So ultimately our goal is to get them in the same physical state they were in before pregnancy around the 4 to 6 month mark postnatally.
So I'll get into a little bit of detail prenatal. So you mentioned exercises like squats, deadlifts, using weights. So are there any limitations in terms of how much weight should a woman lift? Is it similar to what she was doing pre-pregnancy, or you have to take certain things into account?
Yeah, so we say we would bring them down to about 80% of their previous strength range. Mm-hmm. For big movement patterns like a squat or a deadlift or a press. Things like bicep curls and tricep extensions, they can stay at 100%, but the big compound movements, we're going to bring them down to 80%. And that's to alleviate a condition called IAP, which is intra-abdominal pressure.
Okay.
When you lift heavy, there's a lot of pressure going down onto the pelvic floor. And we're going to try and protect that pelvic floor as much as we can during pregnancy, because there's just already a load onto the pelvic floor from just being pregnant. So 80% is our kind of guideline.
And what muscles comprise the pelvic floor?
The levator ani and the coccygeus would be the main two muscles that kind of support are acting as the ones that we would deal with as personal trainers. There are other muscles, but that's more going into your physio level of autonomy.
I wanted to understand that what is the importance of strengthening, because I've read in a lot of places that pelvic floor muscles need to be strengthened and you need to take care of your pelvic floor. What does that mean in simple language so that everyone understands?
By and large, so the pelvic floor supports all these internal organs. It supports, it's like your first layer of your core. And as you go through pregnancy, the pelvic floor will sit, sorry for the people that can't see me, but it will sit like a hammock.
Okay.
And as the mother goes further along into her pregnancy, there'll be more pressure applied to the hammock, and the hammock starts to sag and it starts to weaken. In very bad cases, it weakens so much that it could prolapse, which then obviously recovers a lot of rehabbing or if not surgery to fix. So we'll do a lot of pelvic floor work, and the traditional ones that we'll use is kind of Kegel-based exercises to keep that muscle as strong as we can to help support all the load that's bearing down on it. And by having a stronger pelvic floor, then it also can help with labor. You'll have stronger muscles then to push bub out, and you're limiting your chances of having any issues postnatally. And it's very common for a lot of mums to have some form of incontinence postnatally because they've just lost the strength in their pelvic floor.
And do you have any examples of simple pelvic floor exercises that someone can do at home?
Yeah, the good thing about pelvic floor is you can do them anywhere. It consists of two types of muscle fiber. So there's the fast twitch and the slow twitch. The fast twitch contractions are very easy. Not many people would struggle with them. You're going to get your best awareness from a kneeling position. Now, the problem with a PT is there's no biofeedback. It's a muscle that is pure internal and you'll never be able to see it work.
Right.
So ultimately, if you're not sure if you're engaging it right, you need to, in Australia, we'd send them to a women's health physio, and they'll be able to do an internal check or an ultrasound check to see if they're fully engaging it. But the easiest way we can teach the general public is imagine using the muscles that you use to stop yourself mid-wee. They're the muscles that you want to engage. Okay. Right. So we'd never say to do it multiple times. If they're going to pass urine,
okay,
I'd get my next time they're going to pass urine, stop halfway through the wee and then release. And effectively, they're the pelvic floor muscles that control that movement.
Right. Okay.
And the fast, so that movement, so you're kind of drawing in your vaginal and anal sphincter at the same time. You're holding the contraction for 1 second, and then you're fully releasing. But the easiest way we can teach it to the general public is just doing it when you're passing urine, and then that will get them aware of that's the muscles we're referring to.
So that's probably same for women as well as for men as well.
Yes, yeah, both will be engaged in that pelvic. For males, the easiest way for an analogy for men is just imagine you're walking into ice cold water and you're drawing your testicles up towards your body.
Got it.
Yeah, but so there's this fast twitch contractions, which would be 20 sets of 1 second contractions, which are pretty easy. And the harder contractions are the slow twitch, where you're looking to hold a contraction for up to 10 seconds. And we try to get all our clients to do 10 reps of 10 seconds. And if you can do that, it's a good sign that your pelvic floor is in a good state and a good strength level. If you can't quite hold the contraction for 10 seconds, then it shows that you've got a slight weakness there, or the endurance in the muscles just not where we need it to be.
Okay. And these pelvic floor muscles should be done all throughout, even a week or two before pregnancy.
These are personally, I get all my clients to do these pretty much daily. From 16 weeks onwards. 5 minutes a day. As I said, they can do it I get all my clients to do it when they're brushing their teeth. Most people brush their teeth morning and night. Mm-hmm. So you just get them into the habit of doing the pelvic floor exercises morning and night. And even if they only do it 5 times a week, it's better than the 0 times a week they were doing it before. So hopefully that should keep them nice and strong.
Yeah, excellent. It's always good to make it part of your daily routine so that you don't miss it.
Yes. The issue is that a lot of first time mums don't appreciate the importance of it. It's not a topic that's discussed particularly. No, like a lot of mums, they would have heard of issues, but they don't. Prolapse is not really a dining room topic over dinner. And a lot, especially if they're younger mums, they just don't think it's going to be a problem to them, and it's not. And sometimes these issues won't come about until later in life. So for a health coach, it's about expressing the importance of these things. These things are really genuinely important. It will improve the health and function of the female body.
And there's another thing which I read in a couple of articles was that the psoas muscle or the hip flexor, a lot of time it gets sore, or it gets very tight during pregnancy. Is that something that happens, or is it something specific to people who plank a lot or people who do a lot of isometric exercises?
I would say a lot more of the issues come from the piriformis, to be honest. I think the glutes end up tightening up because as their center of gravity shifts, their pelvis kind of starts to shift and their glutes end up kind of tightening up as a byproduct. So I would say most of our mobility work is spent more on the kind of glute med and piriformis than the psoas. Having said that, when we do a lunge pattern, we generally always do a rear lunge pattern rather than a forward lunge, just to alleviate some of that tightness through the front hip. But most hip problems are coming from pubic synthesis, but I'm not sure if you're going to ask me a question on that later, but that's a real common issue that most mums do have.
What is that, now that you mentioned that?
So this occurs in about 20% of mums, and a lot of the time we can't help this, but we can stop it from getting worse. And it's a byproduct of too much relaxin in the system. Relaxin is the hormone in the system that helps the skeletal system to stretch for labor, but it's in the system as soon as the mum falls pregnant. And what happens is the pelvis rotates, and it doesn't not sit in its normal position. And as a byproduct of that, it starts rubbing together, which inflames the pubic bone at the front, and it's called pubic synthesis. So every time the mum walks or step ups or just unilaterally loads the hips, it flares up and causes pain. And it's pretty common. I'd say about 20% of mums will suffer from this. And all you have to do in terms of the gym is you just keep the hips as close together as possible. You can still squat, you can still deadlift, you can still hip thrust, but you take out lunges, you take out step ups, you take out anything that's going to load. We advise mums to not go for long walks because it's just going to aggravate that plane of motion.
And that usually happens after
this
delivered?
It normally presents itself towards the end of the second trimester. So I would normally see it around 26 weeks onwards.
26 weeks. Okay. And so during the second trimester, are there certain things which are absolutely no that you shouldn't do at all?
Yeah, like the biggest ones you'd always see is the plank would be a huge no-no. Any form of crunches, so a crunch pattern or a sit-up pattern, they're your real like ones that I would advise to like move away from. I would personally take out all jump-based movement patterns, so all plyometrics, to protect the pelvic floor. And you take out, we personally at the gym, we take out all military-style pressing, so overhead pressing from a standing position, because you've lost your rectus abdominis supporting your body, because you've lost your major front core muscle. Your body's not strong enough to support any overhead pressing from a standing position. So we bring everyone down into a kneeling, so a semi-kneeling position, or we do single arm pressing just to protect the load on the lower back. But the truth is, people get really scared and anxious about training through pregnancy, but there's not that many things you take out. The skill of pregnancy training is the things we add, the way we design the programs, building the muscles where we want to build the muscles. And we still train really hard in our club. We've got mums that will still lift well. They'll push themselves on all the exercises. It's not somewhere that people come and don't get fitter. We'll always tell mums if they walk into our door, we'll get you stronger, fitter, and ready for labor than where you are now. It doesn't need to be a downward trajectory. We'll still be able to get people in a lot better condition than when they walk in.
Okay. So a lot of women do yoga, and there are certain inversion poses like headstand or handstand in yoga, and even without yoga. So given you said overhead pressing is something that one should avoid, does that also mean that those inversions should also be avoided?
We yes and no. It really depends on who you're speaking to. Personally, doing like a downward dog, for example, wouldn't be something that I would be particularly scared of. There definitely are some experts that don't like the head to be lower than the rest of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were going to do glute bridges, they wouldn't want to do a glute bridge from the floor. We here, I've never seen anything come about that from my experience. I think they're still using a lot of old data and a lot of old precedences when they're doling out this advice. But if a mum was very scared or not sure, then you can do these, like you can just move away from them. But personally, I've never had an issue with those movements.
Okay,
I wouldn't do a headstand, but
handstand?
I would be fine with I would be fine with a down dog, and I probably wouldn't do a handstand. Yeah.
Okay.
But I would be fine with a downward dog.
Because I've seen some women on Instagram doing handstands while they are pregnant. But again, pre-pregnancy, they rock handstand. Like they can do press handstand and they can do a lot of advanced things. So they're very comfortable with handstands. But whenever I've seen it, I'm like, whoa, that's scary.
Yes.
Like a handstand. And I've seen some women doing even during their third trimester when it's very apparent that they are pregnant and their belly is swollen and they're doing a handstand. And I'm like, how do you manage having that right center of gravity with that baby in your belly?
Yeah, like there's certain disciplines, like what you said is completely true. If people are very conditioned to a sport, there's definitely a lot less stress on the body when they're performing the movement. But there's still things that I would always advise people to not do, like horse ride. Like they can be an amazing horse rider before they fell pregnant, but one fall could, like, it's unlikely, but it could form in a miscarriage. Same as the people that are doing the handstands. Is it worth the risk of doing that? Does the benefit outweigh the risk? And in my opinion, no. So I would only choose to perform an exercise if there's an actual purpose behind it. Is there a real goal to be made from doing handstands? Do you really need that much shoulder stability at this stage in pregnancy? No. Let's just do some cable work and build the shoulders up that way.
Right.
So it's just bringing a bit more sensibility. But do I think the woman will miscarriage because of it? Not really, no. But I just think there's better ways to perform the same exercise.
Okay, got it. And I'm assuming because you're allowed to do lunges and squats, climbing stairs is not an issue, right?
And yeah, if they're presenting with no pelvic pain, I'm happy for mums to do that right up to labor. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. And so we talked about the second trimester. For the third trimester, I know all these things that you mentioned, not doing planks, not doing crunches, no jumping, no horse riding. Are there additional things that a woman should avoid during the third trimester?
To be honest, there's nothing in the third trimester that really changes from the second trimester. The only thing that would really change is the mum's ability to recover. So you would just look at allowing a longer recovery time. There's a lot more pressure in the diaphragm. Breathing becomes a little bit more of a challenge. So from about 34, 35 weeks in pregnancy, you'll see mums dramatically change their intensity levels. And just allowing them to do that, allowing their body to have a chance to recover. Their heart rate will take a little longer to come down. But in terms of exercise selection, there's nothing I would take out of the second that I wouldn't take out of the third. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And are there certain exercises that you would add specifically for the later period, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks before delivery?
Yeah. So it's going to be hard for me to explain over Zoom, but from 28 weeks onwards, we give all our clients transverse abdominis exercises. So the TVA attaches to the side of the body, and we just give them these exercises on a daily basis to keep that muscle as strong as possible.
The transverse abdominis is the muscle which is on your side, the side of your abs. Yep.
Yes, perfect. Side of the abs, and then it attaches around with fascia, so it kind of acts as like a corset. We want to keep that muscle as strong and as active as possible. to support the body and to stop the separation getting as bad as it might. So we do a lot of TVA work. So basically it's tummy vacuuming. So the main function of the TVA is to draw the belly button in towards the spine. So the best exercise by far is we get every single client doing this. We get them on all fours, allowing their tummy to completely relax towards the floor. And we call it a cat-cow. It's very similar to a yoga cat-cow, but the difference being is we don't move the shoulders. The only movement is them drawing their belly button up towards their spine. They'll move 4 to 5 centimeters and then pausing, work on that contraction, and then fully releasing. Because what happens in general, as you'd know, like the human body will always just recruit the major muscles to perform a movement. So if someone wasn't planking or wasn't pregnant and they planked, the body just recruits the big muscles to perform the movement and littler muscles get bypassed. So during pregnancy, the TVA does get bypassed a lot. And what happens is the mum is growing every single week. She's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So what used to be an automatic response to engage the muscles starts stopping. So she'll no longer engage through her core because it's technically just changing every single week. So that motor neuron control is being broken down. Now we want to keep that motor neuron control as strong as we can. So by daily exercise on that one muscle, we can keep that activation strong and we'll keep her TVA nice and strong. Okay. Does that make sense? Did I lose you?
Yep, it does. It does. It does. It's just that if I think of doing that exercise myself as a man, I can understand that it's going to recruit different muscles, but it makes sense when you explain that once you're pregnant, a lot of those muscles are not there. So it automatically recruits the other muscles that
it's
are
a very
available.
simple.
So you were saying something?
Yeah. And what you'll find is the reason we wait so long into pregnancy, if I told you to do 10 reps of these, you would find them very easy. But by 28 weeks in pregnancy, there's probably 4, maybe 5 kilos of load now just sitting on your abdomen. So just drawing that up towards your belly button will really challenge the mum, and will get her to do that the whole way through that 3rd trimester. And ideally we get her to do that in that first 6 weeks of recovery. Now, those first 6 weeks of recovery are paramount because the body is doing everything it can to heal as fast as possible. The uterus will shrink back to its original size in 6 weeks. And we want to do a little bit of rehab on a daily basis to help that recovery and help that healing process and to bring back that separation as fast as we can. So we do that same exercise for the first 6 weeks postnatally, if they can stay awake long enough.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So after delivery, how soon can someone start exercising again or get into some general movement like walking, maybe climbing up and down the stairs, things like that, which are of daily routine?
Yeah. The big one, it will be depending on the delivery, obviously. So all going well and there's a nice natural delivery, we would be recommending our clients do rehab-based exercises for the first 0 to 2 weeks. Just all the internal core work, your pelvic floor work, your transverse abdominis work. And then after 2 weeks, we'd be encouraging them then to kind of doing a little bit more outdoor stuff. So a 30-minute walk a day, get out with the pram and doing some light-based walking. And then around the 6-week mark, we would bring them back to doing some resistance-based training. If it's a Caesar, it does take a little bit longer. They're probably going to be a bit immobile for those first 2 weeks due to the nature of the surgery. Internally, that can take up to around 8 to 10 weeks to heal. So you're probably not getting back into resistance training until around the 10 to 12 week mark.
Okay. And during that 7-8 week period when you're recovering, are there certain simpler exercises that they should be doing?
They will just be doing the same internal core work. So the same cat-cows and the same cat-cows and the Kegel, just to get nice and strong. But realistically, that they cut through 3 layers of tissue for a cesarean. So the body it's a big surgery. The body does take a long time to heal, especially when the mum generally will be sleep deprived, nutrition deprived, breastfeeding. It's quite a lot going on for her system to deal with.
Right. And things like walking is also something that one should limit after a C-section, right?
They want you to get mobile as fast as possible. So even if you have a seizure in the morning, they'll try and get you walking by the evening to stop the body just from seizing up to completely. But the walks they'll want you to walk daily, but it'll be very minimal. Like they'll be shuffling. My wife had 2 seizures, and so I got to see firsthand her recovery, and it's a painful recovery. But you've just got to listen to your body.
Right. Okay. Is there any relationship between exercise and probability of having a natural delivery versus a C-section? Like, have you seen
there is
cases?
data. There's data from it. There's a guy called James Clapp who does a lot of studies over in America. So he's someone that I've studied a lot, and he kind of goes into more how exercise can help reduce labor time, and it can alleviate pain. And the studies kind of show that mums can recover a lot faster. In terms of proving that exercise decreases your chances of seizure, there isn't really any studies that kind of prove that. And even if we just looked at a kind of snapshot of all our members, despite them, I know them being fit and strong and everything, some will still just ultimately not dilate for whatever reason, or their head circumference is too big, or the baby will be breached. So we never guarantee anything. We can't guarantee you being fit and healthy will mean you're going to have a great labor. The truth is, all we can guarantee is it will help, but we can't say for any certainty what's going to happen on the day.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Do you also come across women who come to you for training post-pregnancy who did not do much in terms of exercise and physical training prenatal? So
yep.
For such cases, how does the process work? Like, how do you get them back to physical regime postnatal?
So yeah, we obviously get a lot of members here that will join postnatally that did nothing for whatever reason. Not for us to say anything, but they were still always treated the same, but the recovery just takes so much longer. The activation of things. So we'll still treat every member the same. So we're going to rebuild them from the inside out. Once their pelvic floor and once their transverse abdominis is back to where it used to be and they've got no separation, then we can start integrating some kind of more challenging training. But initially, the first 4 to 6 weeks will always be internal core work, no matter where they've come from pre. And what we'll generally find is if they've trained the whole way through pregnancy, by the time they get to 12 weeks, 16 weeks postnatal, they're almost back to where they were pre-baby, where the mums that would join us and did nothing through pregnancy will take us closer to 9 to 12 months to get them back. And that's purely because the muscles have just degenerated so much, the awareness of being able to actually activate the muscle. A lot of mums will just feel a big disconnect between their core. They can't physically engage it. And because they did no rehab and there was no process in place to keep that muscle strong, it just takes us a lot longer to get that muscle firing. And even then, once we get it firing, keeping it engaged for any length of time is a real struggle. So you would see a mum engage it and then just not be able to actually, there's just no endurance in the muscle.
Right. So it's very low intensity.
But everyone, yeah. So we're just going to rebuild them. But we've got 2 sides of the room in our gym. We've got one half that's a gym, so where they'll do strength training and cardiovascular training. And the other half is more yoga, Pilates and bar. So when they all come back, we generally push them into the Pilates style of exercise. So they're really just focusing the most of their sessions on internal core work and activation. After 4 to 6 weeks, then we'll start pulling them across and bringing back into more of a strength-based, resistance-based training.
Okay. And that's common across women, irrespective of whether they were doing a lot of exercise before pregnancy or not.
The main difference is it's just going to take us a lot longer to get them back into the strength training. Yeah, it's a time factor. But everyone can be helped. The big thing for us is if someone has a bad abdominal separation, they only have 12 months to get that back together. Mm-hmm. So that's why that is a big focus for us. If those abdominal muscles don't get back together, then they'll be left with a separation in their rectus abdominis for their entire life. The only thing that can cure that then is surgery. So we focus most of our attention on doing all that internal core work to bring that separation back as fast as we can. And then once that's back together, then we can get them back training the same way they used to before they fell pregnant.
Okay. And how does one figure out if they have that abdominal separation that you're talking about?
The easiest way would be just to go online to do a self-test, but
okay,
you would be lying. We get them to lie on their back, place their fingers on their abdomen, and come up into a crunch. And now anyone with separation, their fingers will physically fall through a gap in their tummy, and depending on how big that separation is how many fingers they'll be able to fit through. So 1, 2, 3 would be fairly normal. When you get into the 4-finger and 5-finger separation, that's when there's going to be a lot more intervention that will have to take place to help them recover.
And that gap is a certain point, like you have to find that?
It will always be widest where your belly button is. So you start from your belly button, you'd place some pressure downwards, and then you can walk your fingers up towards your rib cage. But what will happen is separation is always like a diamond, and you'll be widest at your umbilicus, and then it will start getting closer together. And when you recover postnatally, the easiest analogy we use is we're trying to zip someone back together. So once this starts gluing back together, everything will start to glue back together. The collagen in the muscle will start to reset, and then they'll get full function back of their abdomen. And that's our goal, to do that as fast as possible.
Right. And what's the technical term for that in case someone wants to check it out online?
Diastasis recti.
Diastasis.
So
D-I-A. Diastasis.
D-I-A-S-T-A-T-I-S. Diastasis, then recti, R-E-C-T-I.
Okay.
But abdominal, if you wrote abdominal separation, that would get every answer you'd need to.
Okay. You should be able to find it.
Very common. It happens in every single pregnancy. I've never seen it not. But the thing is, in Australia, and I really don't know what the Indian healthcare system's like, it's something that's not talked about here. When someone falls pregnant in Australia, you have the obstetricians that will deal with the health of the baby. You'll have the midwife, the mother, as in just making sure the baby and the heart rate and the blood pressures are fine. The midwives are there to make sure that they can breastfeed, they can swaddle, they can keep the baby alive. But the actual mother's body itself is something that's not really discussed. No one talks about abdominal separation. No one talks about pelvic floor. So that was the gap in the market that we always felt needed to be filled, because mums weren't taught how to rebuild their body, how to get themselves back to where they need to be. From no fault from anyone. It's not the midwife's fault. It's not the obstetrician's fault. It's just, there is just that gap.
It's a separate expertise altogether.
Yeah.
So are there certain supplements also that you recommend women post-pregnancy, specifically for recovery?
To be honest, nutrition is something that we don't really go into. Every mum over here would be on some prenatal vitamin just to make sure they're getting all their folate levels and vitamin D, vitamin C, and all the things through them. But postnatally, rest is the only thing they can really do. The advice we would give all our members is to kind of have 6 weeks worth of preloaded food almost ready to go. A lot of food will be just eaten when and if they can. Getting used to a baby will have a 3-hour cycle between sleeping and feeding. So every 3 hours that baby needs to be fed. So that's 8 times a day, which means a mum will never really get longer periods of sleep than 3-hour increments. So we know the first 6 weeks are going to be pretty brutal on the female. So having ready and made nutritious food will just help that recovery as much as possible. And then getting as much rest in those time frames is important. But it's nigh on impossible if it's just you and your partner. But that's why it's really nice to have a family to help raise your kids.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in India, it's much easier because there's a lot of support. Usually, women's mom will stay with her and help her out.
Yes.
So that should help.
It's that has a massive effect for postpartum depression, that they've got some family there to help and show them what to do and hold the crying baby or swaddle the crying baby, or it's which you don't have as much of in Sydney. We have a lot of expats with no help readily available.
Okay, cool. So there were certain questions which I had asked around some of the women that I know who are currently pregnant. And so I'll read them out, and some of them might be technical, which may not be your scope of work. So you can let me know, but I'll talk about them anyway. So one of them is, so are there certain guidelines around when to start working out after pregnancy, things to avoid or look when trying to get back? I think you've answered part of it, but is there anything that you would like to add?
Other than like just, yeah, obviously the type of delivery is the big one on when they want to recover. A lot of mums want to get back into running really fast. I would always just hold fire on that one, because that, until the pelvic floor is fully supported and all the relaxin, it takes around 3 months to 6 months for the relaxin to be completely eradicated from the body. So all the joint structures aren't quite back to where they were. So for all the runners that really are desperate to get back into running, I would always say I would definitely be giving it to the 6th month mark before I went back into that style of exercise. But I'm always
6 months.
6 months. But I'm a big advocate of, you're utilizing strength training and activation training to get someone back a lot faster. And then just,
and
even if they've got, sorry,
as you mentioned earlier, that strength training is something that you should start doing 8 to 10 weeks after pregnancy, in case it's a normal delivery, right?
Yes. Yeah. So they can get back into doing your squats, your presses, your gym stuff at 6 weeks if it's a natural delivery, and allow the body to do at least 3 months of rehab before they go back into their sport. So if they do love to play touch rugby or football or something, just do some gym work before they go back into their old style of exercise.
Okay, makes sense. Next one is, so in cases where epidural is injected in spines, does that change what kind of training they can start with or graduate to? And should there be any long-term considerations?
No. 1 in 10,000 epidurals will have issues on the day where some side of the body will be numb and other side won't be. But realistically, that whole thing will be fine within 24 hours. There should be no lasting effects of an epidural.
Okay, and there are no training implications at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
So this one is more to do with, I think, a combination of nutrition and physical training. So it says, if diet is different for breastfeeding mothers in some cultures, does that impact the ability to get back into training? And by diet, it means that, some cultures, mother don't eat regular food for 40, 50 days. Like they'll not have rice, they'll not have beans, they'll not have lentils or certain, vegetables that produce gas.
Okay.
Does that have any impact on training?
I've not come across any of those diets. What I can say in terms of diet, and in my experience, if a mother's goal is to lose weight, breastfeeding is very counterproductive for losing weight, because the body is designed at that point to store weight. So I generally find that most mums won't lose weight until they stop breastfeeding. But I would always put the health of the baby and breastfeeding is way more important than the mother's want to lose weight. But I'll explain to them that most of your weight will be stored on your triceps. So a lot of mums will store weight on the backs of their arms and their inner thighs, as their estrogen levels are a lot higher during this stage, and the body's just storing that weight. And then when a mum starts to wean off, maybe
what levels are higher?
Estrogen and progesterone. So just basically the internal hormones are just storing fat, getting the body ready to produce milk. And then not until the baby starts to wean off will those hormone levels start to settle down more. And then the mum might find that she finds losing weight a little bit easier. Where I think it's a very common myth that mums will lose weight when they breastfeed. Yes, baby might be consuming 500 calories from the mother, but the mother will generally eat those extra calories as to compensate. And the body is not really in a fat burning zone at that stage. Exercise should never really affect your breast milk production unless you're like an ultra marathon runner. Just training generally 5 times a week will never affect that, but nutrition definitely will. So if the mother is on a low calorie diet, there's more than enough studies to prove that the mum then might not be able to produce enough breast milk, which then will have negative effects. So we would never put a mum on a diet during pregnancy. We would always keep them, like you'd always want to be on a minimum 1,800 calories a day, just to make sure that you're producing enough breast milk.
Right. I guess if it's all about calories, then the kind of food that you are eating or not eating shouldn't matter as long as you are eating enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you were taking out foods and your calories are dropping to 1,000 over a period of time, your body would not be able to produce enough breast milk, and then you would have issues feeding the baby.
Okay, perfect. I guess we've discussed a lot of things and it's been quite informative. So thank you for that. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you or if they want to get to your gym?
Well, we are just a little lonely gym in a place called DY in Sydney, but our gym is called Bump Health. Or it's called Bump, but our website is www.bumphealth.com.au. And that will just give people an idea of kind of what we do and how we do it. But I don't really market myself much at the moment. I've just been more of a businessman than a personal self-promoter. So I haven't really pushed my own agenda out too much. That will happen in a few years when I'm rich enough to become famous.
And do you also provide online consultations now that we've got COVID?
We did for 14 weeks of COVID, but the truth is the face-to-face gym takes up so much of our time. And our goal is to franchise the Bump model across Australia. So our complete focus is that face-to-face touch point, and then having one of these gyms all across Australia to begin with, and then we'll see where it goes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Really appreciate you taking time out and creating awareness and also giving me a lot of knowledge about pre-postnatal exercise and the things that a woman should know. So really appreciate you spending time with me.
Thank you. No problem. Yeah, no, hopefully I'll give people a bit more confidence. I think there's a lot of stigma around, definitely in certain cultures, that women should do nothing during pregnancy. And all that data is based on old science, old wives' tales, and breaking that it's just not women should it's not only that it's safe to train, they really should train. It's going to be better for them. It's going to be better for their baby. It's going to be better for their recovery. So yeah, the more people that know that and have the confidence to do it is only a good thing.
All right. That's an excellent closing remark. Thank you so much.
Guys, this was amazing. I hope this conversation changed your perspective regarding exercise during pregnancy. This is the last episode of the year, so I wish you all a happy new year. If you're looking for a health coach, someone who can help you integrate fitness and nutrition into your lifestyle, please head to my website, abhimanyubhargav.com, and check out one-on-one online coaching page. Or just feel free to message me on Instagram. The links are provided in show notes. I hope you learned something new today. And speaking of learnings, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, and I'll see you in next episode. Until next time, my friends, have a wonderful day and be awesome.